Hello.
Hello.
We are recording.
Excellent.
Are you sure that's excellent? It usually ends up in some very bad things.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing but good here. So strange laughs aside. What's the topic for today?
Hold on a second. I gotta test my push. I'm went off push to talk. So, how choppy do I sound?
Not.
Sound fine.
All right.
Yes, just make sure that you're talking through your diaphragm.
Ho 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 ho.
Use your words. So, I'm about to open up a can of worms with Ferb here.
Actually, shouldn't we have a little introduction thing real fast?
Considering we're kind of in transition, I don't even know what we're going to be called, much less have an introduction. Okay.
Called.
Well, I did some research into the name that we had thought of last night, the pub,
Mm-hmm.
and it's taken.
Which
Wait, the pub?
mostly
I
expected.
imagine that would be taken several times over. Whose idea was that? Slade.
You know what? Pub group or pub. Pub LFG.
Yeah, Slade had a pretty good reasoning behind it last night.
I'm sure he was just out of the pub. That's good enough reasoning, isn't it?
It was a reference to us needing some extra players to take on the content, and unfortunately, we had to get some pubs to join, like you.
It was only called pugs, not pubs.
Yeah, Pug's pickup group.
Ah, okay, pug.
But I have heard it pub too, though, as in public. I have heard that as in reference to the same person.
So a pub LFG. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I guess that's all in the works, and we'll figure that out.
How about you just say who you are?
I'm Shrieker.
I'm Slade.
Hi, Shrike.
Hi, Shrek.
Hi, Slade. My name's Ferb.
You all.
I've sort of been around for a few years.
And
Yeah, Slade. Just in case you didn't know, Ferb's been around for a couple of years now.
He doesn't really keep track of me.
I may have noticed the entity taking up space in my dining room. Yes.
You could fit my setup in a cardboard box.
That they're that way on purpose, you know, just in case.
Yes, in case I have to retreat.
Run away. All right. I guess.
Bombers, introduce yourself. Come on, be a friendly Canadian.
Hello, my name's the Bombers.
Yeah, that's good. So, like I said earlier, opening up a can of worms with Ferb here.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any cans of worms in me.
You're about to.
You're about to. Either that or somebody's going to put them in there and then they're just going to explode all over the place.
Nope, no clue what you're talking about.
So, in discussion of potential topics, Slade had introduced the idea that you had actually talked about amongst yourselves is Starmade attrition.
Oh, Starmade, there's a can of worms.
Yeah.
Thinky worms.
Now, what was that second word? Attrition?
You know, that thing that happens when people die.
I think the life cycle is kind of how it was. We were discussing it.
Oh, well, if you want, I could take some time and tell you all the wonderful story of Starmade.
Please do.
Because if you've been anywhere within earshot of me any time the last half decade, you'd at least know that there is something called Starmade, and I might have had a passing interest in it. I think I first found it via our mutual friend T.F. Bundy, the other Canadian, the one with the knives.
I remember that day.
And that was like, what, early 2013 maybe?
Let's see, it was, I think, the same year that I had moved to Tennessee, which was 2013, so it has to be.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. But The game at the time was this unassuming little one-man straight out of college project made by a guy called Schema, who built everything down to the game's engine himself. And at the time, it was a kind of arcadey spaceship builder and shooter. You can make your little spaceships have different parts and shoot other people. That's how it started, but it was a very quickly growing project. And the time it would have taken for me to lose interest in a stale project, they added different areas, randomized pirates, factions, and there were multiple updates every single day. And I think I got hooked on it by translating over my experience with the Tribes 2 construct mod.
Getting ready to go on a drive there, Ferb?
Hmm?
You getting ready to go on a drive somewhere?
There's a window right next to me, a very, very large window.
And we are right next to a road
A very, very small road.
that has bus service on it.
Sometimes gets awkward. Anyways, but yeah. So I was already there for the whole Minecraft-esque idea of building up your empire, so-called, from our private server we had running at the time. And that translated very well into Starmade, because suddenly I'm building an empire in space. And you could blueprint your things, copy them, make bigger things, even bigger and bigger and bigger, and the scale of the game kept growing. Eventually, my continued interest, because the game was still really small, like only like 15 people were using the forums. The Schema asked a couple of us if we could help moderate as the game grows. So of course I said, yeah, sure. And what do I need to do? And was given a extremely terse primer. It wasn't proper moderation as most big companies would name it, but hey, it was something. There was a large period of time where the game was moving very quickly, and it began picking up players from different communities. There was some people from Blockland, some people from Blockade Runner, which was a similar but dead game. There was people from Corneroids, which was another similar but dead game. And there was a 4chan group that had a specific interest in space voxel building games that picked up Starmade, and they formed one of the core community groups. There was the Yogscast that did a Let's Play of Starmade, and all of a sudden we went from like 50 people in the website's chat to thousands, and it was a madhouse. Most of the people left because the game's, it's this tiny thing. But we did keep some people, and that's probably the biggest population that Starmade's had ever. Shortly afterwards, Schema formed the company Shine with a couple of other members that were helping with artwork and the more businessy parts of Starmade. And around there, we saw an increase in the game's scale. Not its actual progress, but its scale and planning. They wanted the game to be more than just this little arcade thing. They wanted it to be a proper simulation of an entire galaxy or multiple galaxies with moving factions and extremely in-depth shipbuilding and exploration, all these big updates that they planned.
So basically, like Eve Minecraft style.
Yes. And that, my friend, would be an absolutely amazing game if it turned out everything working. Because EVE Online, it's just looking at some of the things that you can pull off, and it's like, yeah, it's amazing. You could do all these different things as long as you're clever enough for it. The issue for me lies in it's that most of the time it's not a visual spectacle, it's not visceral, it's not first person. It's always this zoomed out look of the battlefield as things automatically fire at each other in volleys. So being able to say, get out of the command seat of your vehicle, walk around, see your crew doing stuff, and having all of that simulated have an actual effect on the battlefield or whatever you're doing right now, that would be pretty freaking big. Also, apparently too big for Schema and Shine, because while the art direction of the game pitched up amazingly, they added, was it normal maps, emissive maps, amazing textures. Got to give them a ton of credit for that. But the coding seemed to be, it's still just Schema, still just out of college. So the quality and quantity of their programming simply could not match up with what they wanted the game to become.
Did they contemplate expanding their programmer base at all?
Everybody asked why they didn't. And what we've gotten so far is a mixture of Schema wants to protect his code, which you can interpret in some weird ways, and the public opinion of Schema's code is spaghetti.
The way it sounds to me, and this is just with very little information, is that it's kind of like an artist wanting to protect and make sure that his baby is, up to what he wants it to be. And letting somebody else try to help build your baby or raise your child can be somewhat of an iffy thing to just, spontaneously want. It might be hard for him to just accept that he might need it.
Eyes bigger than your belly.
I think Slade's got it, and I think Shrike's looking at what Schema fed the public as far as information from his side is that he doesn't want, is that, what was it? Other programmers coming in would need to learn the code, which would take him valuable time away from working from the code, which meant that the game's programming base never grew enough to fit with the new vision of the game. A lot of people were of the opinion that he should basically put the game into a playable state and then immediately work on something new with all the experience that he's gained from this current project, which at this point it would be like, a half decade wasted essentially on Starmade if it doesn't turn out to be something really, really good. And I'm sure that's got to really sting badly. The game kind of began a bit of a downhill slide here. It had been running on hype for its future, and when the updates started stalling, getting slower but bigger, a lot of that hype began to die down. And Shine and Schema kept piling on more and more plans and plans and plans that would very, very, very slowly get implemented. A lot of the population is kind of left for greener pastures.
Yeah, it sounds
I think
like
a lot of them are at Empyrean Galactic Survival right now.
yeah, it sounds like that kind of mentality could lead to a lot of community, I hate to bring up the word that I brought up earlier, but attrition. If you fail to feed your army, they eventually die off. So, I mean, it sounds like he just He tried, but he didn't have enough, I guess.
He doesn't have enough time in the day to get things done.
Yes. Yes.
Also, he needs to learn to understand the meaning of the terms cost.
Your voice communication cut out there. You need to make sure that you are speaking from your diaphragm.
Fine. He needs to learn the meaning of the term sunk cost.
Sunk what?
You know what? Hold on. I'm going back to
Sunk Hoth?
No, I think
Cost.
it's sunk cost.
They didn't sink Hoth, Slade. They just invaded it.
yes, sunk cost. He needs to learn the meaning of the term sunk cost.
Can you elaborate on this?
From an engineering standpoint, you would sit there and say, you know, we've just spent 10 years and $10 million trying to create a water-powered pogo stick. We can't stop now because otherwise all those resources will have been wasted. That is sunk cost.
Makes sense.
Now I really want a water-powered pogo stick.
Would there be water squirting out the sides every time you jump?
Yes!
We'll go back to the drawing board for you for Herb.
Anyways, yeah, and that was one of the things. The other would be more community related. We had some vastly different mindsets of player in this one community because the game was offering pretty much, you know, you look at the plans for the game and it's offering everything. A huge buffet for everyone to come and eat, vegans, meat lovers, anyone, but it never had the proper game mechanics for healthy player interaction split between those groups. And that left some major rifts in the community and a slow decline into toxicity as well. You could say that most of the community is split into 3 different groups. You have the quiet majority that, you know, does what it does. They're everywhere, and they're usually having the most fun out of everyone. You've got the build or so-called roleplay community that inhabits mostly build servers or single-player servers, and they build things pretty. They build things because they like the act of building things more than combat or using them. And I definitely agree with them. Building is cathartic. It's a nice sort of trance-like state of mind to go into. And one of their biggest beef with, say, another portion of the community is they want to be able to go onto PvP servers without getting, going to pick up a Minecraft term here, griefed. On the other side of that, you have a very insular PvP community of longtime players who have thoroughly mathed out all of the game's mechanics, how to build ships to be not pretty, but extremely effective in combat, and who thinks the roleplay community are being a bunch of crybabies. And there's no game mechanics to prevent, say, somebody who's already established on a server coming in and with this, you know, huge titan of a ship and a fleet of cruisers and whatnot, and just sitting outside of spawn killing newbies as they log in. And there's nothing preventing people from placing a huge amount of battle stations outside of someone else's home base, and so on and so forth. There's nothing in the game. There's plenty of combat mechanics in the game. I mean, you could make books about combat doctrines in Starmade. The issue lies in that none of it is specifically made to be fun for both sides or to promote healthier gameplay. It's just really there for its own sake at the moment. And since most of the PvP community is longtime players that have been there since, you know, 2014, 2015, some earlier. They all know each other. They've all had plenty of time to be affected by these not friendly game mechanics. So you get a whole bunch of groups who actually, in real life, hate each other's guts. And something that was quoted recently that I'm not going to ever leak any names in here, but someone said that when you're dealing with longtime PvPers, cheating and skullduggery is to be expected from all sides. And I'm not talking about the friendly type. I've got a list here from one of the factions. Still not going to name any names. Let's see. Using an exploit to get ships for free, used on every server factions ever played on. Used cheat engine to insert members into other factions so they could steal blueprints and delete bases.
Wow.
Block duplication. Used old forgotten dev tools to track players. Created week and sometimes month-old alternate accounts to attempt to get recruited into people's factions. Attempted to buy off server admins.
Herb.
Recorded the IP addresses and all the conversations of everyone that goes to their team. Sorry, their I suppose I already said it. Their TeamSpeak channel. Nobody knows what they use IP addresses for. Doxing other community members. If you're not familiar with the term, it means revealing personal information about someone without their consent in an online environment, such as posting a picture of their face or their address.
It's actually really kind of sad. I mean, the community, I don't really know much about the community. I didn't have many experiences with the community itself, but Starmade itself...
One last thing, just to put icing on your little cupcake, is when one of the this faction's enemy factions, who's also probably done some very strange things, decided that they didn't want to play Starmade anymore and went to play EVE Online, this faction formed up a group of players and paid them to drive off the other faction from EVE Online.
What? But why?
Because these people have been sitting in this metal can surrounded by boiling water for years, and, well, I can understand why they would hate each other looking from the inside out, but looking from the outside in, it's absolutely just, it doesn't make sense from a social standpoint unless you know what they've gone through.
Yeah, you're completely right. I was about to say, I mean, it's a community within a video game, and when people break that barrier, that virtual barrier that exists between you and the screen, or between you and the other person on the other side, wherever it's in maybe Japan or California, wherever the heck it is, when you break that barrier, it's weird. It's ridiculous.
It's horrifying. And I don't say that lightly.
And he had to
I've
moderate
played
that.
some, yeah, I've had to deal with a couple of that, and people even tried to, people have tried to blackmail me, and I'm like, but I don't have it. I've never done anything really. Where did you get this? That's not me.
What about that bank you knocked over in Dallas?
That wasn't me.
Oh, okay. Well, that works.
Yeah, I mean, I've played in some other Questionably, some other games with questionable communities. Minecraft public servers are just a haven of scum
Adorableness.
and villainy,
Yes.
and they're not nearly that bad. Things don't get personal. You're just another name on a screen. Any of the Minecraft servers where you've had people there for years and years and years at a time, they're not really angry at each other. They would even miss each other if one of them were to leave. And unless it's just some weird kind of tsundere relationship here between people, I don't expect trying to force them back into the game by making their experience in other games terrible is, how you treat someone like that. Archage never had anything like that, and it had some pretty intense PvP social dynamics. Black Desert Online, never heard of anything of this scale going on there.
And
PlanetSide 2, you're
just-
just another name on the screen there.
Just to insert something here with Black Desert, it can be a game filled with drama if you let it. And that something like that hasn't happened, or that you haven't heard of anything from Black Desert communities, is, to me, honestly kind of surprising. I don't know. That's just how I feel. I don't think you'd ever see that kind of thing from Guild Wars 2, would you, Da Bombers?
No.
Yeah, people don't really have a reason to hate each other in Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
Because the game literally rewards you for working together versus not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring up some of Slade's old stuff, like, what was it, Darkfall Online? There's a whole class of kind of anarchy survival simulators where you're given the tools to build up and get attached to the things you have, and you're given the tools to destroy the things that others have, but you're not given the reasons to make that fun for both players. And what invariably happens is the hardcore part of the community, quote unquote, wins the game by driving everyone else off, and then the game dies because there's no one else playing it.
I was actually referring kind of the Shadowbane.
Shadowbane.
And the
sorry.
thing is, there's actually 3 parts to that community. There is players that basically build political units and they fight their wars. And, but they stick around. And then you got the other 2 components is, I'll call them the wolves and the sheep. You got the sheep that like, okay, cool, this is going to be a challenging game. I get to build stuff. And then you got the wolves who are looking for the sheep to destroy their stuff. So when the sheep finally get driven off and all the wolves have left are the hardcores, they leave too, because there's, they're not going to get any fun from trying to aggravate the hardcores, because the hardcores are going to hunt them down and remove all of their stuff. So there's no value, there's no entertainment value. But yeah, eventually you're just boiled down to whoever the hardcore players are, and probably not that much attrition in that from that group. I've been led. I wasn't in it later, but I was led to believe that Shadowbane eventually reached a point where they had their community, and there was a lot of angst there, but they all stayed and played within what the rule sets were available. And I think Darkfall had a similar thing happen to them, but their life cycle seemed to get burned through a lot faster than what happened in Shadowbane. And I actually have, apparently the company that made Darkfall has licensed out their product to 2 other companies. So we're going to get 2 other Darkfalls coming out at some point from 2 different companies. So apparently it's a niche market that still has people willing to throw money at it. I just can't see it being a very big market.
Kind of funny that it would be split up between 2 companies like that. Although, I don't know, though. Usually the sense of competition like that usually breeds something very positive to the community or to the customers or clientele or whoever. But do you think that'll actually be the case in that regard?
I don't know, because that's the thing, is there's no telling if they're going to develop an identical product, because they can sit there and make the game the way they want it within how the mechanics work. So we may end up with two different Darkfalls that mechanically are very different from one another, and it might provide a split on the community as to what appeals to them. So I don't know how that'll work out. I also, I've been watching Camelot Unchained's development, and I have beta access whenever they get the beta access on that game. It's it's the old Dark Age of Camelot deal. So it's not open world PvP. So you're not going to have any lone wolves looking for sheep. You're going to have 3 teams fighting one another. So your political divisions are preset. And I actually think that actually would lead to a bit more of a more long-term community, as opposed to what happens, say, with Shadowbane, and it's all for themselves type mentality.
Yeah.
Definitely. You can see that work in Planet Side too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said about being able to make your own faction, make it yours, have your own aesthetic style and style of play. But it really doesn't. It's not something that can take a lot of a beating and continue, like something that is built into the game.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really the underlying reason why we decided to actually remember for when we were making or drawing up plans for the Minecraft faction server that we were getting ready to build.
4 Kingdoms.
Yeah, where the server before that, is basically a faction server with everybody on their own, free for all, and start your own faction and whatever, which led to some really interesting.
It was an odd server.
Yes, it led to some interesting and really cool and, like you say, really strange things. But at the same time, it eventually led to a lot of attrition, too. People came and they left. They came and they left. And then, after a while, it was just the core members of the community that remained. And we built the faction server around trying to make sure that within those 4 kingdoms that we had that players could join, there was enough content and there was enough everything to just keep their interest there. I mean, it was going to be more than just the basic factions map that we had before then. We were going to try to have a functioning economy and trade system and diplomacy system.
Territory and diplomacy, yeah.
Yeah, but it never worked out in the end because it was just a lot for Thal and Neo and all those in the programming to do, and they just didn't have the time to do it because they had real jobs, and nobody else in the community really had knowledge or expertise with that. So it eventually just got dropped. So I'm not sure if any of that would have come to fruition or have been possible, but yeah, I mean, separating into static communities that are already established, static groups.
And since your groups are already established and you already know what they're like, you can set up this positive interaction game mechanics right from the get-go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew who was going to be joining the faction that I was creating. I mean, I knew that a few people were going to be interested in joining and were probably going to. So I was building the faction around whatever I knew would keep them into it and whatever they would be interested in doing. Which
is why your biggest building was a library? Nerds.
Shut up. Yes, the library. Oh, good times. I remember getting...
I still got pictures. One of Capitol Square from the view over the bridge to that river that ran through your capital city, and another of inside.
I've got a picture of me teleporting you into this big fluffy pink room.
No.
With cats.
No.
I used to love doing
AFK
things.
boxes are something of the past. I don't need that in my life again.
I love doing that to you when you were AFK. It was so fun.
But yeah, I suppose that's most of the story of Starmade.
Yeah, interesting. I hope it does, in the long run, succeed and it's not one of these tried and failed games that come up.
Well, seeing that Shine's doing everything themselves, I think the only thing that they lose if the game fails is time, which time is valuable, but they haven't dumped money or resources into it in any real capacity.
So, Bombers.
Just
Yes.
What for?
nothing. I was just going to start rambling.
Well, that's what this is for. I was just gonna ask Bummers what his thoughts were on the upcoming Guild Wars 2 expansion. But if you have something more to add.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm curious to see how the new elite specializations for each class are going to shake things up in all areas of the game. And mounts are going to really bring a new mobility element to all of the games. So I'm quite interested and happy to see that.
Now, you say specializations. Is this something akin to a World of Warcraft talent tree?
I am not familiar enough with World of Warcraft to be able to give you an answer.
Basically, as you level up, you gain points to put into specializing your character in one or more ways.
No,
No.
it's going to be different from that.
Well, what is it then?
So when each class has 3 specialization lines. That's how you build your class setup, like your skill tree, like what skills you're going to want to have, and like what your major minor traits and stuff are going to be. Elite specializations is a whole new line, which gives you a whole new set of abilities, ability to use a weapon you previously weren't able to use.
Okay.
Stuff
and
like that, yeah.
how many choices? Is this just an expansion of the already available choices, or is
Yes.
this something new on the side?
Well, it's something new on the side, and it's also an expansion of what's already there.
Okay, so it ties into the current specializations. So
Yes.
depending on what you've already chosen, opens up new things for the elite.
No. Man, I'm trying to figure out how to best explain this.
Okay, a particular class has probably like 9 different areas that they could specialize in to put into those 3 things. They're going to add a 10th one now. So
No, there's five different specializations that you start off with, and you can choose. With Heart of Thorns, you could choose a different 3rd specialization, which was the elite specialization. And with Path of Fire, it'll be a different elite. You can't have both elites active at the same time. You're choosing between one or the other, or none.
Okay, so it's a whole new class of specialization that you can only have one of.
Yes.
All right. That is slightly different from World of Warcraft's talents trees.
Yeah, like for example, you could take the Ranger, who stock is just a DPS spec of ranging stuff, pretty much, with the Druid spec, which is the Heart of Thorns elite specialization, gives him a lot more support skills. You can use a staff, which has a bunch of heals on it. You can go to this astral form, which again has more support and healing aspects to it. And this complete each specialize the class in a different way that you couldn't play the game before.
All right. You also said something about mounts.
Yes, mounts are coming to Guild Wars for the first time.
It seems a little bit late, doesn't it?
Yes, but they're doing mounts differently from most MMOs, where each mount is a very unique in what it does. For example, the starter mount that you're going to start off with is a raptor. Its special skill, I guess you could say, is it can leap really far forward, so you can cross large gaps that you normally would not be able to with this mount. There's another mount. It's like a jackalope type deal. It's got a big tall bound where you can jump up onto things that you normally wouldn't be able to get up to. And this, you have to train masteries to be able to learn how to ride these mounts.
Sounds interesting. So it's not as in depth as, say, the Archage or Black Desert Online mounts are, and that you raise and train each one.
No.
But it is better than the usual. It's just an item that you activate, and it looks different.
Yeah, it's not like you spend X amount of money to have this mount or this mount or this mount. Each mount here is, you get the base mount is of no cost. You have to earn them. You can't just buy them.
All right.
All you'll be buying is a different skin version that you can put onto it.
So I know that they already have the gliders.
Yes.
And do you think that they're going to have to further change their maps to be used with the new mobility that mounts give them? Will mounts simply make some jumping puzzles obsolete?
So what they've done with gliders already is most jumping puzzles, your glider's disabled, and mounts will be the same thing. Once you enter the area of the jumping puzzle, you can't mount or glide.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Otherwise, yeah, you could just literally glide from a tall area into the jumping puzzle chest, and that's kind of worthless. But no, they thought of that right from the get-go. So jumping puzzles and certain other areas of the game, you can't glide or jump in or use mounts in.
Oh, that answers my questions. Anything else on the menu today?
I'm personally fairly excited about the new announcement yesterday of Age of Empires 4, apparently.
Oh my goodness, took them long enough.
Yes, I guess it's been, let me look it up real fast. When was AoE 3 released?
Is that Microsoft or EA?
Microsoft.
Oh, so it's going to be a Windows 10 only program. So I can't use it.
2005.
Yep, October 18th, 2005. So that's 12 years ago. Actually, it's going to be 18 because it's, I think, next year, they said?
2018 for release?
I think so.
Is there anything about this game indicating that they're going to make it available for OSs other than Windows 10? Because I know they're in that big kick about trying to build a gaming monopoly now.
I would say probably because it's Microsoft, it's not going to be available for anything other than Windows 10.
Maybe Xbox, possibly, but...
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying is I'm never going to have Windows 10. So obviously there's no reason for me to get hyped over a Microsoft product now.
Well, that's a bit of a downer.
You know what? I got plenty of games available to me. So I just remember
Microsoft's the only one with Windows 10 only games at the moment.
They have gotten a few people to, because I think the EA's Plants vs. Zombies 2 game was released as a Windows 10 app. So it was again they're trying to get other publishers and developers to buy into this thing.
Well, it's probably going to follow the pattern because Age of Empires Definitive Edition, which is going to be released on October 19th, which is just the remastered. Actually, no,
remastered.
Remastered was AoE 2. So they're remastering AoE 1. And it's going to be on October 19th for Windows Store and Windows 10 exclusively.
Well, then, hey, Microsoft is doing their Microsoft's thing then.
I guess so. I guess it followed that pattern then, which kind of bites because I was looking forward to multiplayer with you, but I guess I'll have to do it with other people.
Yeah, here's the thing about those Windows 10 apps. You can't mod it. You can only play it the way they say to play it. So that is, if it's not an MMO, if it's any other kind of game, modding it is going to be a big part of what I'm looking for. So if it's just a static app and I can't adjust how it's played like that, add on personal content, then I don't see any reason to waste money on it, because once I'm done playing it, it affects the replayability.
which is a kind of a big thing this day and age. I mean, most games that come out, I want to say at least half of them you can mod, or at least have a modding community of some sort, whether it's official or unofficial. And so I hope they're not shooting them. Well, it's Microsoft; they're not going to shoot themselves.
They are shooting themselves in the foot. It's already been pointed out by a lot of people. They're trying to cut into Steam's realm, and the problem is they're never going to provide the level of service that people have grown used to from Steam in that sense. So yeah, they're trying to strong arm the market. And it's the same pattern with, say, these console exclusive games where the console owner sits there and bids to get an exclusive app for their console, and with the intention of trying to make people buy their console, and it just doesn't seem to really be working for them.
Well, it ends up hurting the customers or consumers a lot. Because you have friend A who has an Xbox and friend B who has a PlayStation. A lot of games they can't play together. One's Xbox exclusive, one's PlayStation exclusive.
And that's just what we need, is we need that kind of nonsense from the consoles being ported over to the PC.
Mm-hmm. We already have that. Like Origin did with all their EA games, and Ubisoft things with their games. Some of them.
Well, how many Origin and Ubisoft games do I have?
None.
0.
That does kind of suck. But I'm also excited about a special game that's coming out next year as well.
Oh, yeah, it's your Jurassic World.
Yes, and it's not one of these stupid kiddie mobile app games. Apparently, it's going to be kind of, I don't know if you ever played Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, where you had the entire concept of Jurassic Park and could make the park without all hell breaking loose. Well, I mean, you could make hell break loose if you wanted to, but and sometimes a storm would come and destroy some fencing and whatnot.
So it's Sim City then.
It's Sim
with
Jurassic
dinosaurs.
Sim City with
yes.
dinosaurs.
You know what? That sounds like an amazing idea. I would love that.
I was late to the party with the game and was extremely sad to see that there's not been many update. Well, they stopped development on it, I guess, and at the same time, no expansions ever. So to really, really want more out of the game, I was just sad. But at the same time, it was one of those games that was open to a modding community. You could mod, to a limited point you could mod, but you could mod a lot of things and make things really, really interesting. So I'm also interested to see how this new one, Jurassic World Evolution, is going to be in that regard. I don't remember who's making it, to be honest. Oh, it's Frontier, the same people making Elite Dangerous and Planet Coaster.
Oh.
So I do have high hopes for the game, since it's people with a lot of good experience with theme park games, which is kind of weird because Elite Dangerous is kind of like their black sheep in that regard.
Well, Elite is a long-term game for them.
Yeah.
Before their sim days, I think.
Okay. Well, it's about an hour, I guess. I guess we can wrap it up.
We say goodbye now.
All right.
Maybe.
See everybody. Have a good day.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right. See ya, folks.